Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us here today, while I know most people are out thinking about their families and the upcoming holiday weekend. Today is the first day of winter solstice, which is the shortest day and the longest night of the year. And we are here today because in the next few days, we are shaping up to have some of the most cold and most dangerous days that we've experienced, possibly for decades. So before the worst hits, and while we all still have time to prepare and act, I want to share some information about the plans that we have set in motion to help everyone in our community get through to our neighbors who are surviving outside this winter. We want everyone to be inside. None of us are used to these kinds of temperatures, and it is going to be a rough couple of days. Through the Joint Office of Homeless Services, Multnomah County and the City of Portland provide extra shelter beds that are open all winter long, every single night. And on the coldest and most harrowing nights, when temperatures dip below 25 degrees, or when it's below freezing and we see rain or snow, we open up extra locations to ensure that everyone has access to a no-turn-away shelter. We also make sure that anyone who needs transportation to a shelter can get a ride. Our outreach workers are out every day bringing life-saving gear directly to people who are braving the elements, drawing from the Joint Office's stock of supplies, as well as supplies donated by our generous community members. We've managed to do all of this thanks to partners like Metro, which has lent us the Oregon Convention Center. We simply would not have been able to do what we're going to do these next couple days without community partners, Do Good Multnomah, Cultivate Initiatives, and Transition Projects, who provide the place and the people to make it happen. Yesterday, I declared a state of emergency in Multnomah County to alert people to the threat this weather system poses to everyone, and to give the county maximum flexibility to respond. So tonight, we will be opening 4 severe weather shelters: the Oregon Convention Center in Portland, the Sunrise Center in Gresham, Portsmouth Union Church in North Portland, and this facility, Arbor Lodge, also in North Portland. To stay current on when severe weather is declared and to get the latest information on how to help people access shelter, go to 211info.org and sign up for their alerts. And as always, on nights when the severe weather shelters are open, anyone can call 211, no matter the time of day or night, to receive a ride, or thank you to TriMet, they can take the bus even if they don't have fare. And lastly, I want to thank some of the partners whose work and collaboration have been critical to helping the Joint Office stand up and staff our severe weather shelters. Multnomah County's Department of County Human Services, Multnomah County's Emergency Management, the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, and the Oregon Department of Human Services. Thank you for working together and being ready to activate even when we know that the holidays are fast approaching. And before I hand it off to my colleague, Commissioner Dan Ryan, I want to be sure to acknowledge the reason that we're here in this space, in Arbor Lodge. Multnomah County purchased this building with pandemic relief dollars so that we could expand our shelter system to ensure that our severe weather shelters would be as safe as possible. Our partners at Do Good Multnomah have stepped up to operate it, providing resources and connection at yet another winter shelter under their care. And because we're all pulling together in the same direction, because we see the need for safety off the street, we've secured up to 2,000 shelter beds across our entire county and room for hundreds more like these on the worst nights. These shelters offer much needed immediate safety and short-term stability, but they also serve as touch points of connection and services that help our neighbors experiencing homelessness move closer to permanent housing, which is our ultimate goal for everyone who needs a shelter bed. Thank you again for coming today, and now I will hand it off to Portland City Commissioner Dan Ryan.
My fog and my glasses go down a bit. All right. Thank you so much, Chair Kafori. You always show up and lead and to save lives. The county and the city are partners for many services, especially noted when we respond as partners during the severe weather emergencies. The county takes the lead on shelters, bravo, that was great information, and the city responds to ensure that the infrastructure we often take for granted is protected and prepared to meet the specific emergency. I am joined by Shad Ahmed, the Director of Portland's Bureau of Emergency Management, who will be at the helm of Incident Command this evening, and Haley Bonsley from the Mayor's Office. As Chair Kafoury said, this is the longest night of the year, and the city is preparing for extreme cold temperatures with the threat of freezing rain. For those of us from these parts, we know how dangerous freezing rain is, and we are hoping the conditions do not linger for too many hours or too many days. Mayor Wheeler declared a state of emergency starting today, December 21st, and the city and county will meet every day to determine the action plan while that is in effect. In fact, this morning I had the honor of listening to all of our city bureaus give a critical report on how they are preparing and ready to respond. Let me tell you, the silos are down and all the cross-bureau collaboration is in full effect to serve all Portlanders and save lives. It was beautiful to witness the emergency professionals in action. Thank you, all of you public servants. You do that every day. I just get to witness it now and then. Here are a few highlights of what I experienced today, and there can be more follow-ups in the Q&A. PBOT has begun to de-ice major traffic corridors. You know the black lines that you see? Those are what they're up to right now. They are also in consistent communication with TriMet. And the key message to all, once snow and ice begin to fall, it's pretty basic. Do not travel, unless you are part of an emergency response system. Speaking of transportation, Parks has offered 2 ADA accessible vans. They will be driven by a couple city attorneys who have volunteered to pick up those who need a lift to the warming shelters. Also at Parks, our urban foresters are staffing to respond to ice. Freezing rain is a horrific threat to our tree canopy, and they are all ready to mitigate and to respond. Also, our park rangers, they are out in full force helping to locate those who need shelter and will direct them to the closest option. Water is staffed to respond 24/7 to water main breaks. And yes, 3 Benson bubblers in key locations will receive extra attention so they can continue to provide free water for those in need. The usual responders behind me now, police, fire bureaus are all ready, as always, along with 911, who will offer overnight accommodations and overtime for their employees. In all, this morning I listened to 15 bureaus and offices working together as a team to keep Portland safe. We also have made it easy for our entire workforce to volunteer at shelters across the city. Together, we are preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. As we prepare and brace for this severe solstice storm, we're reminded of the importance of government partners coming together, and also the importance of recruiting volunteers. In fact, as I look at the media right at this moment, do we have any takers?
We'll be working.
All right, you're looking back. We got one. Please get her name right there. Okay, I want to end with what makes Portland such a special place, and that's neighbors taking care of neighbors. This is what Portlanders do. So as you light a candle tonight for Hanukkah or Advent or next week for Kwanzaa, I hope that you can take a moment to think about those who aren't home, who aren't safe, and who aren't warm. And then you might consider volunteering as part of your holiday experience. And with that, I turn it over to Chair-elect Jessica Vega-Peterson.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ryan. So I've been an East County resident for the past 17 years, and I also want to acknowledge another East County resident who's here, Commissioner Lori Stegman. I am proud of how tough and resilient our community is and has been for decades, but this is one time where I'm concerned that our tough it out spirit is actually the wrong attitude for the next few days. This weather that's coming up is no joke. We know things get real in East County, and that is especially true of this weather event. With very strong winds coming, temperatures will reach even colder temperatures in East County and the Gorge. Everyone needs to take the risks of this weather very seriously. If you're outside, we need you to come inside. Bring your pets, bring your belongings. We want you and we welcome you. Remember that your ride to a shelter is free. Call 211 or get on a TriMet bus or train and let the driver know that you're going to a shelter. I'm grateful for the Multnomah County Sheriff's HOPE team, who is out there today and every day, connecting with vulnerable neighbors in East Multnomah County. In the coming days, they will help many unhoused neighbors find shelter and safety indoors. If you have housing, we need your help. Check on your elders, your neighbors, folks who are outside working, households with inadequate heat, anyone who might be at risk. And please consider donating cold weather gear. Hats, gloves, warm jackets, dry socks, and boots all can make a real difference right now. Donation sites are available across the county, and you can find information about this by going to 211info.org. Partnership and collaboration between government and the community is never more important than at a time like this, when our community, our neighbors, need us to be working together. I know that Multnomah County is a place where people step up, and I'm grateful for the actions that people will take over the next few days to work to keep everyone safe. And with that, I want to introduce Multnomah County's Health Officer, Dr. Jennifer Vines.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Jennifer Vines. I'm the Multnomah County Health Officer. I think in an emergency, good leadership and good communication save lives. So I want to thank you all for being part of this effort today. If I had one piece of advice for the public, it would be get inside and stay inside. And I'll be frank that I'm feeling today similar to how I felt in the days leading up to the 2021 heat dome, where again, we had temperatures a full 20 degrees different than what most people had experienced in this region. So I would just echo what's already been said about not underestimating the kind of weather that we're in for. I have three big worries. It's my job to worry, but here are my big worries. And my worry is heightened by the context that we find ourselves in with almost all of our hospitals and crisis care standards and our 911 and EMS and general safety net systems struggling to keep up with demand. So given that context, my three worries are, first, for people who are unhoused and unsheltered, who need to find a place to stay warm, and I really appreciate the efforts to create spaces like this so they have that option. I'm worried generally for anyone who may find themselves out in this weather and be surprised by just how cold it is, and the real risk of frostbite to nose, cheeks, toes, fingers is very real, and the risk of hypothermia, which is where the cold really just overtakes your body's ability to maintain its warm temperature, and you literally will shut down and stop functioning, and that is a medical emergency. Finally, I'm worried about people who are inside but whose heat may not keep up, and who may resort to something like a generator or a gas stove to try to stay warm. We know that emergencies like this carry a risk of carbon monoxide poisoning when people use those fossil fuel-based heaters at home without proper ventilation. And carbon monoxide is considered a silent killer because it is an odorless, colorless gas, again, that can overtake people who aren't prepared. So I want to appreciate you all for getting this message out. I get to introduce our next speaker, without whom none of this would be possible. And this is our Chief Operating Officer from Do Good Multnomah, Daniel Hovanes.
That's good, yeah.
Great.
Hello, my name is Daniel Hovanes. I'm the COO for Do Good Multnomah. I will keep this brief, and I apologize as I fumble my way through a press conference. We have a lot of work to do today to finish setting up two other sites, Portsmouth Union Church and Arbor Lodge here. And there's a lot of work that goes into setting up these sites. And so I'm just very thankful for the staff at Do Good who will travel when most people aren't to serve the folks here in North Portland. And we're very grateful to have this opportunity. It's a bit of a tradition for Do Good to serve this neighborhood. And so we're honored to keep doing that. I'm thankful for the county and the city who have stepped up and made this easy for Do Good to say yes to serve this community. They have provided all the resources. Chris Voss does an amazing job every morning in our emergency management meetings. Those are not tough or easy to run. About 100 folks on this call, he does a great job doing it. But again, we got a lot of work to do, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Daniel. He was working at the table, so I missed him in the introduction, but really we would not be here, and the fact that he let us all crash on him just a few hours before opening says a lot. So now we have time for questions. If you just want to go ahead, Brian.
Yes, I was wondering, Dr. Jennifer Vines, can you just share with people how people can keep safe, not just if you're houseless, but what are some tips that you have?
Yeah, so certainly I'm worried about people who are unhoused and urge them to make use of the resources that have been outlined here today to have a plan to stay warm. I think similarly, anyone who feels like their heat is not keeping up would be welcome at these shelters. That's especially important for families with infants. Infants sleeping in a cold room are their own special risk category for hypothermia. So parents really paying close attention and people taking advantage of the resources that we've laid out. Again, do not underestimate the temperatures that we're going to be facing.
Would you just tell people maybe to stay inside like you said before?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's get inside and stay inside. And if you feel like you need supplementary heat, be extremely careful. And really, I would say avoid using gas stoves, camping stoves, without very careful attention and ventilation, again, because of the accompanying risk of carbon monoxide poisoning that can happen in cold weather emergencies like this one.
Dr. Vines, what's being done to alleviate the stress on the hospitals with the potential of more people needing to go in?
Well, honestly, I think you're looking at it, to be honest. As far as I'm concerned, cold-related illnesses, whether it's frostbite, whether it's hypothermia, which is more serious, those are completely preventable by people just getting warm and staying safe in a warm place until this cold snap passes. But again, given the particular context at this moment, it feels all the more urgent that we get this message out. So again, I appreciate you all being here.
I'm not sure you can answer this, but what's the plan for people who just really refuse if there are those folks out there, right? Like we've already talked to some of those folks who are like, I know, once it gets colder, more than likely they'll change their mind, but does the city, county have a plan to just have people kind of out roving and making sure nobody's alone in possibly
Exactly.
emergency?
We have outreach teams that, as Dan said from Do Good, these are folks who aren't going to be staying home during these really cold days. They're going to be out on the ground in the community, handing out life-saving supplies, tents, tarps, warm coats, gloves. And again, call 211-INFO if you see someone who's in distress, or call 911 if you see someone who's in distress that you think is inappropriately dressed for the weather, seems like they're having some sort of a mental decomposition, because we do have people who are activated and ready to go out in the community for those who just won't come in. We have had experience at this. This is not the first winter. While the temperatures will be colder this time around, we have had experience with these. And we have found that most people, as the days go on and it does continue to get colder, will come inside. And that's why we're prepared to open up additional shelters as needed to ensure that we do not turn away anyone who needs to come inside.
How many do you operate around the season, outside of these 4 that you open up during the emergency?
It depends on how many days the event occurs. We have about 2,000 shelter beds on any given night, but we're prepared to open up 100 or hundreds more if the need is there.
Sorry. How many do you operate that aren't emergency, right? You mentioned that you have cold weather shelters open, I think, all season, at least one, right?
Yes, and we actually, during COVID, we turned a lot of our winter shelters into year-round shelters because we needed to keep people safe with distance and from illness. So we have about 2,000 shelter beds on any given night.
So 2,000, but the point in time this year, the unhoused count was
More than that.
3,000. I mean, do you just not anticipate that many people coming? Or?
No, we will continue to open up shelter beds as needed. As I said, we have a no turn away policy, and it's one of the reasons why we're so grateful to our partners at Metro for allowing us to use the convention center right in the inner east side, because that space is very flexible and we can accommodate a lot of people there.
And staffing, you guys are ready? I mean, do you know how many you're going to have each? Maybe this is a question for you. How many you're going to have at each emergency shelter, and are you going to have enough? The joint office did say this week that there would be enough, but are you absolutely certain of that?
We have all of our providers, our partner providers, Do Good and Transition Projects. They get their own staff and their own volunteers, and then we also hire county and city staff. We've put the word out. We have sign-up sheets to go around. So there's plenty of opportunity available if people want to help, but we definitely don't want to be in a situation where we need volunteers that we don't have them, and we have yet to experience that. So hopefully we won't have that occur this year either.
So many people died during the heat dome. What lessons are you taking from that to try to prevent that with this storm?
I would say this is one of them. One of the things that we learned from our after report on the heat dome was that even though, despite our best attempts to get the word out to the public, there were people that just didn't know. As Dr. Vines talks about, we're not used to this level of, that level of heat or this level of cold. We're a pretty, moderate climate here. So getting the word out in any way, shape, or form possible, and that may be, print, TV, can also just be one-on-one to your neighbors. And so that's why we're calling on the public to assist us in this effort. It can't just be government or our nonprofit partners. It needs to be each and every one of us in our neighborhoods, on our blocks.
Sergeant Ingram, while you're here, do you guys want to talk about the roads and just tell people what to do, what not to do? I know that message, we've been working on this all week, and the message has been just don't get on the road if you don't have to. But if you just want to touch on that.
Sure, I'm always anxious to talk about traffic safety stuff, so sorry to hijack, I don't mean to do that. We have record-setting numbers of fatal crashes already this year. This month alone, we've already had 10 fatalities on our roadways, which is almost 20% of how many we've had for the whole year. And we've set a record, you have to go back to 1948 to have more pedestrian fatalities than what we've had this year. 1948, that's 70-some years in the past. And you have to go back to 1987 to get a higher number of total fatalities in the city of Portland in a year. So it's pretty dangerous out there on our roadways these days. And when you talk about the cold snap that's coming through and the potential for ice and snow and different things like that, it gets even more dangerous. So what I would say is what has already been said: if you don't have to travel, if there's not an emergency, don't. Just stay home, relax, be with your family, stay warm, and don't be on the roadways if you do not have to be. And if you do have to be, slow down. Just take it easy, take the proper precautions. If it's icy, make sure you have chains and you've got four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And if you have to be out walking, I can't stress this enough, that I don't know, a large percentage of the folks that have died on our roadways that have been pedestrians and bicyclists and vulnerable road users have not had clothing on that helps them be seen. Just the other day, I was going home from work at about 4:45, sun's going down, and someone's crossing the street in front of me in my patrol car, and they're in all dark clothing, walking their dog, totally normal looking individual, black pants on, black jacket, black hat, and the sun is setting, and I could not see them until they crossed in front of the headlights of the oncoming car. I wouldn't have known that they were there in a crosswalk. So just be seen. Do everything in your power to help you not be a victim of some roadway tragedy. Please be safe out there on our roadways, folks.
Dr. Vines kind of touched on this, but hoping to hear from Fire about carbon monoxide poisoning. Also, if there's any concern for tent fires.
It's probably me. There's always concern for tent fires, of course. Rick Graves, Portland Fire. Thanks for having me. So let me speak to the carbon monoxide we addressed earlier. If you are going to be utilizing an alternative generator to power a heat source, lights, what have you, please have that outside of your structure, whether that be a trailer, a tent, a home, and have the exhaust facing away from any vents such that you don't have any blowback into your dwelling, into your confined space, so that we avoid the carbon monoxide issues. If you're utilizing candles for illumination or heat, don't leave those unattended. Take a little bit of time today to charge your batteries, make some food, have food available so that you don't worry about preparing food if we happen to lose the power grid. We were speaking earlier, probably the biggest concern I have is we lose our power due to ice storms and dropping the wires. So, the power companies are magnificent. If you have not seen them work in storms, it's amazing, but it takes time. So if we're away from power for a short period of time or a long period of time, be ready. Have water, have food ready, have some blankets, have a safe alternative source of heat. Do not leave your fire unattended, whether that be the structure of a tent or the inside of your home. It's beautiful outside now. We've got 10 hours. It's your 10 hours to look out for yourself, to look out for your neighbors. Come together. That's what we do.
Would you talk more about tent fires? Your concern there for the.
Well, we at Portland Fire are always concerned about tent fires. It could be in the middle of the summer or it could be in a cold snap. So we are constantly mitigating the danger of someone freezing versus the danger of the fire next to their structure. So as first responders with regard to fire, we outreach. We have crews in and out of the houseless population constantly informing and educating as best we can so that we don't have a situation such that there is an errant fire that happens to run through a tent or an encampment. But as much as we try to educate, sometimes they still occur. So we're doing our very best to try and outreach and make sure that we can educate those that are unfortunately and vulnerable and not inside, so that they don't they're not a danger to themselves or their neighbors. Yeah.